Brother McNeil, what dreams or aspirations did you have for yourself when you were in undergrad?
When I went to to Illinois for undergrad, again, I kind of mentioned to you my exposure, and so one of my, at least goals or aspirations from having parents that both had undergraduate degrees was to make sure that I had a next level of education. So getting some form of a master's or doctorate or law degree was kind of what I was exposed to. And when I got to Illinois, I was pre-law. So at the coming into the school, my notion or thoughts was I was going to get a JD, and that was going to be the the direction that I was going to take. Little to know, I work with and advise and direct a lot of attorneys, and I will tell you, other than the general counsel, most attorneys are not at my level within the corporation, or any of the corporations that I have worked with. And so I sort of had to, adjust the, kind of what I wanted to do from, my aspirations. But it was, I would say, at least initially, what was consistent was getting, the advanced degree. And then I passed it forward. So, son is graduated from Morehouse and considering what he wants to do next. And he's a good Pi chapter new, which
big ups.
Well, yeah. And daughter, which is older, she's emergency room medicine physician. So she also has.
That's Brother Newman's guy, baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
Has passed it forward. So that was, I think, just from the aspiration. I always, again, wanted to be, leading and in charge and managing and directing something. So that was also something that was one of my kind of goals and aspiration. And right now, I think I'm still on track with what I have aspired. What I look forward, and, we'll get into kind of the cyber and where I'm at, but one of the key areas that when you talk about wealth, that people that at least have worked in corporate and other types of entities, you want to be able to be on some of, be a board of director on a number of, paid for organizations. And so
you want to be on the board, huh?
Right. Yeah. You want to be on the board. Yeah. You want to be one of the board members. And I was able to just, I want to say maybe within the past 45 days, joined the board. And I joined it because of the fact of the level of expertise from a business perspective in cyber. And I'm now also interviewing and looking at other board opportunities. So my long-term kind of gain is when I do decide to not be in a corporate position, would be to at least have 3 board assignments that I would be working on. And then obviously I have, my other interests that I would be supporting, within the community that I would be in. But that's kind of my next phase in the game plan here.
So at some point you went there, you're thinking law, and then you got to a point where you're like, maybe that's a waste of time and energy for me because I'm more geared towards the leadership and the management, and I don't need a law degree to do that. I can just hire a lawyer, or we can have lawyers on the team to look at the legal ease.
Right. And when I looked at, so you kind of get this fork in the road when you're operating, and
it's fractal. Go ahead, bro.
Yep. And so the jobs that I was doing, so I when I came out, I had a sales gig, which was when you get a marketing degree, and this is what they'll tell you with Illinois or whatever, but you're not going to do anything with that unless you have a master's. I mean, that's just, when I hire someone, when I was doing all marketing and product and development work, those are the credentials that you needed in order to do that. Now, what you will do is you'll get your first, your chops cut on sales. And if you
Mhm.
want to be, get your grind on and that's your hustle, and
Right.
nothing against it, but a lot of people, that's their DNA and that's what they love to do.
Right.
For me, it was a means to an end. And so my first gig was selling. And you talk about when you know something that you're doing and it's something you don't want to do for the rest of your life. I've had a few of those experiences. For me, directly with the type of sales that I had. Now, this is not like the internet, not like social media, not like the access to data and information that we currently have today. My first real gig coming out of Illinois was slinging copiers and laser printers, man. And I
Wow.
have to call on school, government, companies, cold calling. They
Yeah,
give you a
that was
telephone.
big industry. Yeah, I was on the toner side, but go ahead, bro.
You
I was
want to,
pushing toner. Yeah.
you know the drill.
Yeah.
And so what I learned was that I needed to go where there was high volume and where people were using these devices that they needed to make sure that they were turning them over. And
Mhm.
so I was able to get promoted, get navigated into that in the first 2 or 3 years. But I knew from my heart that if the grind, for that kind of a grind, this wasn't, here's my, stack of accounts, or as they would call people that do business development. I got a lot of peers that, they spend time taking somebody to lunch and whining and dining back in the day, and they call that just maintaining the account. I got paid based upon bringing revenue in the door.
Right.
Right.
And cold calling, I used to go up to a business, you try to scope it out, think you got the right information to contact, and you there knocking on the door. Or you making a phone call, can I speak to the president of, this division or this area? Hi, I'm Michael McNeil. I work with Royal Business Machines, Konica, Kanishiruku copiers, and I'd like to, sell you this type of a system.
Did you make any kind of interesting connections on any of those people that you were meeting out there in the field that later,
It was some, but because it was more, not because of the job, but because how I approached the job.
Mhm.
So I was heavily involved in targeted, government education accounts, so the GEM accounts.
Okay.
So when I went in, I knew certain leaders within those institutions, and this would be a good lead for how I got my next job, because I was calling on and making those relationships. I was back at Illinois Circle, and the guy that I interviewed with, but they didn't have any openings in their program at Illinois Bell at the time, was there at the university. So when I go up to Circle campus, I called on Gordon Phillips. I had made my connections from my previous job, and I made an impression with him when I interviewed, 2 or 3 years before, at U of I on campus in Champaign.
That's why they say, be humble and respectful to people on your way up, because you'll see those same people on your way down or on your way up, 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 up.
Right.
So yeah, but nobody, you weren't sitting around on the couch and these people were saying, "Hey, get off the couch.
Right.
Hey, come on, get off the couch." Right?
Yeah.
No.
There was none of that.
No.
Yeah.
And I just, and I don't say it to be, snarky. I just said that, when I was driving, for Uber,
Mhm.
I would talk to people and ask them what they do and everything. And it's just a certain consistency, that they talk about, that, you just you don't know what you don't know until you get out and start doing it, but you got to get out and start doing stuff. And then you make connections. Marlon sat there, said the same thing. I mean, you just hear it over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
The connection point is important. And to your point, it's knowledge. The more you can gain from a knowledge perspective, the more you can then be relatable to people and then be able to communicate, give back.
Facts.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power. We want to do this chat real quick because it's some great questions. Some of them are ones I had, and you're covering a lot of the stuff I had. So we're moving along. This is moving great. I did want to comment. Pretty Boy Mark Daniels, Capship, Kamikaze, Death Squad, the One Club. He said this is a super. He's not talking about your suit. Thanks,
Right.
Brother Daniels. He said this is a super power suit. I love the perfection. Thank you, Brother Daniels. Thank you very much. But go ahead, Self Love. Clear those a couple more of those questions. Yo.
Okay, Mark Daniels also asked, do you credit your work ethic and drive to having a spiritual component, a foundation in religion?
Mm.
That's a very, very strong one. Yes. So I am a pretty devout still Catholic. It's been, obviously COVID has taken its toll on all of us. And it's been a little bit more difficult for me when you've relocated in order to have that base of community. And so that's why I rely, yes, spiritually as my foundation, but you'll find that even when I travel and I remember being over in India, and I was able to find a Catholic, church because I was going to be there over this 10-day period. Mm-hmm. And the one thing, at least from the religion perspective, they had their own components of the customs because of being in India. So you were not going to walk into the church with something, shoes on. So what you saw was that a lot of people had taken their shoes off, or when they had gotten to the pews, they didn't have the shoes on. Wow. Because of the tradition within that environment. But the rest of the Mass and its communication and the readings and, the homily and gospel, everything was consistent. And so I do, to the question, put that in the foundation. And again, just from the growing up, my mother was probably our driving force, and she was extremely devout from a Catholic and Catholicism, and my father converted and became from Methodist to being a Catholic when when we were going into in high school, mid-70s.
So are you crediting the Catholicism or the spirituality or your drive,
no,
or are they interlinked? Or
well, what I would credit is you have to have some kind of that foundation, and mine from the discipline and our ability to connect as a family. That was always one of the foundations. So we were in a position that our nucleus participated, celebrated, and kept that as a foundation. And when I, again, moved away from Chicago in the 90s, I always had two things I had as sort of that foundation. That was one in terms of the outreach. The other for me was my brotherhood. And so it always allowed me to be able to have that security blanket and acknowledgement of a commonality of like men, minds, achievement, in every field of human endeavor.
Facts.
So that was the, kind of our, my base.
And I want to say, as greater as that question was, it was also unfair because it was a great question. It's just tough to separate the two. Like, you know what I mean? Like, right? Because everything you do I think is of spirit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like your spirit is moving you to that work ethic. I don't know, but you know what I'm saying? It's a tough question. It's a tough question. I love it though.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Self.
Yeah. Canon Lambert asks, were you aware of the benefits you were getting from your parents' example while in the moment as you were growing up? Because that's very interesting.
Right. Was it subconscious or were you conscious of it? Or if you did become conscious of it, at what point? Great question. See this?
The example was the example, the foundation
before you answer, this is why we asked the chat. This is why we asked the chat for what, Self? Questions.
Yes, because man, we have a very intelligent.
My goodness. All right, but all right, go ahead, bro.
I would say was not conscious in the moment that I was being given those examples. It was after the fact. And again, I will also tell you, I have the better example as to raising my children and now seeing them have children and seeing this, you see that they now have that recognition where it wasn't there consciously with what they're doing, and you can hear it because you see them, exemplifying similar types of traits and examples. And so that's how I kind of knew, and I probably would say the consciousness of what I described. And it just, even just talking about, your parents, especially when you have both of them gone and what they meant to you and from an experience, I never would have done, and no, I haven't, full justice over the years while they were there. But I would probably say, once I started having, children and, in my 20s, and then definitely by, early 30s, when your kids are beginning to get up in a little bit of, their teens and age, that's when I had my epiphany and the aha moment of what it meant to me with what the relationship and that, that upbringing and that stability that they provided.
No doubt.
Appreciate that. Hey, so park it right there. We'll get back to the chat questions. And chat, please keep those going. There was an acknowledgement by Charles Newman I want to read. Powerful acknowledgement. He says that this brother is one of the most intelligent men I know. He knows how to take his experience and transfer all of his skills. Excellent father, husband, and businessman. True. He put resonance man, but he's a scientist. He meant Renaissance man. True Renaissance man. And I couldn't have said it better, bro.